Слава Ісусу Христу! Щиро дякую, що сьогодні зібралися в цей вечір, щоб більше дізнатися про життя митрополита Андрея Шептицького, а також про його діяльність. Саме сьогодні, 1 листопада, це день, коли Господь Бог покликав митрополита Андрея до вічності. І саме цього року, також у 2025 році, виповнюється 160 років дня народження митрополита Андрея Шептицького. Шептицького ми знаємо в нашому народі як український Мойсей, тому що, можна сказати, він виводив наш народ з тої неволі, тому що Україна перебувала в ці часи також під окупацією і потребувала визволення. Саме митрополит Андрей Шептицький також перший застосував українську мову в богослужіннях. Тому його життя є дуже цікаве для кожного з нас. Тому я пропоную подивитися два коротких таких фільми по 5 хвилин. Один англійською мовою, другий українською мовою, але з субтитрами навпаки.
Decided to go to the church of the poor people, the Ukrainians. But that was not before he had great resistance from his father and from Polish society. This was really a question discussed in the parlors of the Polish aristocracy. He was from an old Ukrainian family, which in today's terms, his family would be considered millionaires. They were among the nobility of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which he was born. He himself was a count. Of course, German was the official language, the family language. By that time it was Polish, but all the neighbors, the villagers around their estate spoke Ukrainian. And so he grew up in a multicultural setting. From 1901 to 1944, he was the head of the Ukrainian Catholic Church. And he wanted to lift up his people, who were, when he became Archbishop, that part of Ukraine was one of the poorest corners of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He did raise the socioeconomic level of this congregation, and he had a very encompassing, holistic approach to ministry, which touched upon not only the explicitly spiritual questions and moral questions, but social, political, economic, cultural questions. He also worked on the development of kind of a national independence, because it was clear that in the pecking order, the Ukrainians were maybe on the third or fourth rung. The Austrians, then the Poles, then the urban Jews, and Ukrainians were at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. They had very few people that went to universities. They couldn't support their children in university studies, so he launched the EPE harbor Jews. He wrote a letter called Thou Shalt Not Kill. He tried to protect Ukrainians. He died in November 1st, 1944. The war had not been over, but the second Soviet occupation had begun. And before his eyes was a devastated landscape, a demoralized population, and a church that was about to be destroyed and rendered illegal by the Soviets. And yet, apparently on his deathbed, he articulated a prophecy that the church would revive. When a superpower like the Soviet Union was using its propaganda resources to besmirch the legacy of Shepitsky, it was easy not to recognize his virtues. So the recognition of Shepitsky is something that really is happening only over the last 30 years. I think he's the greatest Ukrainian of the 20th century, and his greatness is still in the future.
It was from our spiritual guide, Metropolitan Boris Budzyak, and I will have another short video.
Вітаю! Якщо ви за нами вже стежите, ви знаєте, про що ми тут говоримо. А для тих, хто на каналі вперше, нагадаю, мене звуть Богдан, і тут я розповідаю про Україну та українців. Сьогоднішньому уроку ми дізнаємося, хто ж такий Андрей Шептицький. Андрей Шептицький – це предстоятель Української греко-католицької церкви. На початку ХХ століття, будучи галицьким митрополитом та одним з найбагатших людей Галичини, Шептицький зробив багато, аби Україна все-таки здобула свою незалежність. Андрей Шептицький народився 29 липня 1865 року у селі Прилбичі на Львівщині. Володіння його сім'ї сягали кількох тисяч гектарів земельних угідь у Західній Україні. На той час на території Австро-Угорської імперії. З такими маєтками можна усе життя провести у бездіяльних розкошах. Та Роман, а саме таке ім'я він отримав при народженні, обрав собі інший шлях. Першу освіту Роман здобув вдома. Філософію та теологію вчив у Кракові, потім право у Мюнхені. Після вступу до монастиря отців Василян у Добромелі у 1888 році прийняв чернече ім'я Андрей. Особисте рішення Андрея Шептицького піти у монахи благословив сам Папа Римський, Лев XIII. А 1900 року імператор Франц Йосиф І своїм указом призначив Андрея Шептицького львівським архієпископом та митрополитом Галицьким. З молоду Андрею доводилося вести родинний бізнес. Усе це допомагало митрополиту правильно інвестувати в економіку Галичини. З того часу там розпочався кооперативний рух. Підприємство «Маслосоюз», наприклад, постачало галицькі вершки усьому світу. Для покращення його сервісу заобачливий Шептицький придбав аж 20 автомобілів. А на знак подяки «Маслосоюз» видав митрополиту купони на молоко, які той розділив між бідними жителями Львова. Шептицький вільно володів більш ніж 10 іноземними мовами. Усі свої великі справи владика Андрей здійснював із фізичним болем, бо з молодих років хворів на туберкульоз кісток. Через те, що захворювання постійно прогресувало і прикувало Шептицького до інвалідного візка, у 1939 році митрополит навіть отримав спеціальний дозвіл від апостольської столиці – правити службу Божу сидячи. До речі, Шептицький був понад 2 метри зростом. Був депутатом Віденського парламенту та Галицького сейму. Найбільшим політичним досягненням митрополита стала домовленість з поляками про виборчу реформу, яка б збільшила представництво українців у Галицькому сеймі. Здійснити її завадила війна та ув'язнення. Шептицький був не тільки провідником української національної ідеї, але й палко підтримував білоруську національну ідею. Все це стало приводом для арешту митрополита під час окупації Львова російськими військами у 1914 році. Митрополит пробув у засланні у російському Курську 3 роки. А ще владика провів реформу богословської освіти, заснував Львівську богословську академію, звідки надсилав найкращих студентів на навчання за кордон. При Шептицькому в Українській греко-католицькій церкві вперше почали використовувати живу українську мову в літургіях.
До вас, мої
також Шептицький став одним із засновників першого українського банку, створеного на засадах іпотеки. Усього за 2 роки установа вже повноцінно працювала. Надійність банку та його резерви визнали у світі. Окрім того, Шептицький інвестував понад 10 тисяч доларів у шоколадну фабрику, попередницю сучасного бренду «Світоч». І найцікавіше, що у резюме Шептицького можна описати і нафтовий бізнес. Він викупив землю у карпатському селі Перегінське, там збудував нафтові свердлини і здавав їх в оренду за умови, що там працюватимуть місцеві селяни. Куди ж йшли всі прибутки від банку, нафтового бізнесу і підприємств? Ні, не у кишені Шептицького. Він їх інвестував у нові робочі місця, освіту та культуру, давав стипендії обдарованій українській молоді на навчання у Європі. У ті часи Шептицького боялася тільки влада. Через великий авторитет митрополита влада не могла відкрито виступати проти нього. Хоча в теках з доносами було чимало приводів. Коли у 1933 році у Східній Україні лютував голод, Андрей відкрито називав його штучним. Писав листи у Ватикан, закликав світову громадськість не мовчати. Він тоді організував потяги із зерном, які, щоправда, на кордоні з Радянським Союзом ніхто не пропустив. Також владика вів перемовини з голлівудськими режисерами щодо фільму про Голодомор. У часи Другої світової війни митрополит опікувався Червоним Хрестом, це офіційно, а підпільно рятував життя. Від нацистів сховав у своїй резиденції та у монастирях сотні німецьких дітей. Гостро критикував і нацизм, і комунізм. Головна загроза українському народу – язва москофільства. Для України Шептицький хотів справжньої незалежності. Тому можна впевнено говорити, що Україна сьогодні – це наслідок великого бізнес-плану митрополита Андрея Шептицького. Я дуже надіюсь, що такі відео вам корисні та потрібні. Тому не забувайте нас підтримати лайком, написати коментар та заглянути в опис до цього відео. Побачимось.
Дуже цікаво.
Так, а заберу комп'ютер. Так, ми так коротенько, але знали про життя митрополита Андрея Шептицького і обклад Україну. Не тільки духовну, але також економіку, розвиток і банків, і маслозаводу, і також і свердловина нафтова. Тобто він був людиною генієм. І найбільше, що він любив, це любив Бога і любив свій український народ, де він і допомагав. Митрополит Шептицький у важкому 1942 році писав своє послання, як будувати рідну хату. Україна стояла серед воєнної руїни. Люди втрачали надію, багато хто не бачив сенсу в боротьбі, в жертвах. Та у той темний час митрополит звертається до свого народу, як добрий батько до дітей, і каже: не зневірюйтесь, почнімо будувати рідну хату. Його слова і сьогодні звучать напрочуд актуально, адже і тепер, коли світ змінюється, коли перед молоддю відкриваються тисячі доріг і спокус, ми стоїмо перед тим самим запитанням: на чому будуємо своє життя, свою родину, свою батьківщину. Рідна хата – це не тільки дім, а серце народу. Митрополит Шептицький пояснює, рідна хата – це не стіни і дах, це символ нашого народу, нашої духовної спільноти. Кожен із нас – це глина в цій хаті. І від того, наскільки чистими, правдивими і добрими є наші серця, залежить, чи стоятиме цей дім. Він застерігає, що не можна будувати рідну хату на ненависті чи неправді. Таке будівництво переречене на руїну. Тільки любов може бути каменем наріжним, на яким збудується дім народу, пише Шептицький. Для нас, християн, це означає, справжнє будівництво починається зсередини, з очищення серця, з правдивої молитви, з готовності прощати, любити і служити. Родина – перша школа любові і віри. Митрополит називає родиною першою клітиною народу. Саме там ми вчимося любити, працювати, жертвувати і вірити. Деколи здається, що церква має відповідати за виховання дітей, а насправді ні, родина. Бо в родині виховується, закладається фундамент, а церква вже продовжує розвивати. І Шептицький нагадує, найбільша перемога – це збудувати міцну, віруючу, люблячу сім'ю. Бо якщо сім'я здорова, бо сім'я є клітиною суспільства. І тоді, якщо суспільство здорове, тоді все буде добре. А коли і сім'я, як то кажуть, нездорова, тоді суспільство буде нездорове. І ми бачимо, що Тепер важко зустріти здорову сім'ю. Тепер маємо тих всіх перелік гендерів дуже багато. Шептицький нагадує, найбільша перемога – це збудувати міцну, віруючу, люблячу сім'ю, де Христос у центрі. Бо там, де є Христос, там і мир, і радість, і надія. Тож, можливо, варто почати вже тепер із того, щоб щодня дякувати батькам, допомагати ближньому, шанувати старших. Бо саме з таких простих речей виростає здорова нація. Праця – молитва серця. Однією з центральних думок Шептицького є святість праці. Він навчає, що праця – це шлях до гідності людини. Це спосіб служити Богові і народові. Працюйте так, немов би ви все робили для Бога, закликає митрополит. У сучасному світі легко піддатися лінощам, споживацтву, поверховості. Але християнин покликаний інакше – не просто заробляти, а створювати добро, залишати після себе щось світле. Коли ми чесно працюємо у школі, університеті, на роботі чи в волонтерстві, ми вже будуємо ту рідну хату, про яку мріяв Шептицький. Єдність і любов – основа всього. Митрополит боляче переживав, що українці часто розділені за політичними, церковними, суспільними поглядами. І тому нагадував, роз'єднаність – це найстрашніший ворог нашого народу. Він писав: ми не збудуємо рідної хати, якщо брат піднімає руку на брата, а серце повне злоби. Ці слова звучать пророче. Сьогодні, коли наш народ знову проходить через випробування, коли стільки болю, втрат і сліз, Шептицький кличе нас, особливо молодь, бути миротворцями, будівничими єдності. Це означає навчитись слухати, прощати, шукати спільне, не замикаючись у своїй бульбашці. Христос – камінь наріжний. Усе, що ми будуємо, без Бога розсипається. Шептицький завершує своє послання простими, але могутніми словами. Коли Господь не збудує дому, даремно працюють ті, що його будують. Він нагадує, що рідна хата народу стоїть міцно лише тоді, коли її фундамент – Христос. Для нас це заклик – повернутися до джерела, до віри, до сповіді, до участі у святій літургії, до служіння іншим. Коли Христос у серці, тоді любов, мир, надія оживають у наших діях. Будувати рідну хату означає будувати себе, своє серце, свою родину, свою громаду, свою церкву і свою батьківщину. Це не одноразова акція, а дорога всього життя. Тож, брате і сестро, коли станеш перед вибором, як жити, за що боротися, кого любити, пригадай слова митрополита Андрея. Будуй хату любові, віри і правди, і тоді твій дім стоятиме міцно, навіть тоді, коли бурі пройдуть над землею. Хай Господь благословить кожного з нас бути живим каменем у хаті нашого народу, щоб вона стала в правді, мирі і любові на віки віків. Амінь. Тож бачимо, це послання воно є глибоке, і саме Шептицький наголошує на любові до Бога, на любові до рідних, близьких і на вихованні. Бо як виховуємо наших дітей, таке будемо мати наше майбутнє. Тому будьмо з Богом, хай Господь нам допомагає будувати світле майбутнє без наших ворогів. Зараз запрошую пана Бориса розповісти більше, як будувати фінансову хату. Бо знаємо, духовну хату як вже будувати, але фінансово будемо вчитися. То запрошуємо пана Бориса.
Я ще більше кави, як хтось хоче.
А ви то буде дуже довго, чи що? Я жартую, я кажу, буде дуже довго, що ви кажете, що ви пили каву.
Тільки до півночі.
О, то добре, то зараз буде.
Може півгодини, 40 хвилин.
Ні, я жартую. Тільки вам треба.
Так, більше кави.
Так, я думаю, ще треба кави. Це була гарна емоція.
Прошу, я зробив собі.
Ага. Хочеш? Я зробити тобі? Там є такі вже сміливі, як я повідомляю. Я не знаю, чи є.
А там цього є? Може є, може немає, де знає. Я не буду слухати. Так,
Я тут дивлюся, що там є. Там має бути, там є різні, так. Якісь цукрі.
Там є хоряча вода і ріжний чай. Там
She has probably more caffeine having in her coffee. I'm not gonna sleep, but maybe I'll have some. Так що, дивіться, так і є.
HDMI one. Okej, dobra.
Достатньо, бо ми живемо в такій вулиці, ну така така тиха, у нас немає багато набирає так сильно. Ми цю кругу теж так замітили, що просто якісь маленькі чіпили ліхтарик, щоб ви знали, що в нас є цукерки. Але було все було, так. А перший рік ми купили день переїхали, так майже нікого не було. Але все одно не залишилося. Бо порівняно з попередніми роками, то було. А потім я ходила з молодшою дочкою до її подружки, поїхали. Чоловік був вдома, то казав також, що не знає.
Не знаю, чи я піду ходила. А що тобі є?
Як ти кажуть, здорова на мокрому зуби не заглядає.
Дати що ти тут? Да. Ну да, да. Але я так не хочу відлітати.
Починаємо. Я останній раз говорив, але я не представляв, хто я є. Бо я знаю, ви мене знаєте так від церкви. Я довший час, сказати, 30 років, може трохи більше, працював в індустрії semiconductors, in the integrated circuit design. Я був інженером. І я тепер перейшов на іншу кар'єру. Були різні причини, чому я перейшов. Одно було, що коли бувши інженером, я думав, що я знаю досить, навіть багато. Але вийшло, що я декого слухав, що грішми було з купленням будинку, мені вийшло не дуже добре. Це була одна причина, що я можу навчити других людей, щоб не попали на такі самі помилки.
Is it easier for you to speak in English when you
Well,
don't understand
because
English?
Lucy's not going to understand.
No, it's okay.
So, well,
Yeah, English is good.
Yeah, I think
so
it's
я можу трохи одної і трохи другої.
if it's
Okay.
easier English, do it English.
Yeah.
Я
Well,
ось
the
думаю,
The technical я буду говорити англійською, може трохи пояснити деякі теми українською, але так будемо провадити англійською мовою. So ми чули, як будувати родину, духовну нашу хату, але ми ж мусимо десь вижити, так? То як будувати хату, хата все, починаючи будинок, мусить мати сильний фундамент. Без того можна будувати, але може завалитися. So, треба знати, що це значить. What does it mean to have a strong foundation? Я останній раз говорив, що це починається, я буду, I'll explain what this means. We're going to get into some more specific topics, but in general, what we talked about last time is the foundation is really based on protection, debt management. Everyone can understand we don't want to have excess debts. We want to have an emergency supply of money in case something happens, and we invest. And as far as some goals as far as what we want to have in these different areas. And one thing that we didn't talk about last time, which is I think an important topic, is estate preservation. So we work for a long time, and what's going to happen to everything that we built over time? Who is it going to go to? Right? We want to control that. So actually I'm going to talk a little bit about estate preservation. So some people may think, well, I don't have that much, so I don't really have to worry about this. But we need to consider, there are some realities that we need to understand. So really, it's really, like I said, what's going to happen to everything we have? So we want to, again, with the whole topic of protection, the people that depend on us, right? So if we have minors, small children, right? Something happens to you, who will take care of them? You want a court to assign that? Or you need to do that yourself, right? If young people inherit money, they may be tempted to spend it right away, right? So special needs, if you have children that have special needs, you need to accommodate for that. Protection from creditors or predatory type of situations. Many people will get divorced. Make sure that we set that up correctly and minimize family disputes. Has anyone known when somebody passed away and in the family there was disagreement or worse about this should belong to me, this should belong to you, right?
You can stipulate in the trust
Yes.
if they argue where they get nothing.
Yeah, so yes, that's, but so we need to prepare for all of that. So it's really, the aspect is transferring of your assets. So the three main ways that this happens. The one we don't want is the probate process. So will or intestate means you die with no will. So this is when the government and the courts will take over.
Якщо ти не зробив заповіту, то тоді суд забирає все на
Забирає
державу.
все, і дітей забирає, і все
That's,
забирає.
that's when you establish a trust, you also set up a will so that it's done together.
Right. So there's also an aspect of it by contract. So deeds or titles. So if with some financial accounts, they have transfer on debt. So that happens, and that happens for certain things. The deed of your house can be transferred to the spouse. So that's a second kind of category. And then And the other one is a trust. A trust is a document, a legal document that you set up. And we're just going to touch on the basic concepts here because we could spend the whole session talking about this kind of stuff. So it's important to know California is a probate state, right? So even if you have a small estate, it's still, you don't want that to go through the probate process, and we'll go a little bit more into some of the things that we need to consider. We're not going to go into this too much, so revocable and irrevocable. So the kind of trust that we generally recommend is called a living trust or a revocable trust. Irrevocable, there's certain situations where you want an irrevocable trust. It happens for legal and tax purposes, it's advantageous to have a certain kind of irrevocable trust. But in general, we want the trust to be revocable, which means when I set up my trust, I want my children to have something. I have certain things now, 10 years later, 20 years later, that may be different. And you want to be able to go and change that, right? So who do you want to be the guardian of your minor children when they grow up? The deeds will change. Who do you want to be the executor of your trust? Who do you want to have power of attorney? That may change over time. So we want to have this in place. So a few things I want to highlight here. No will, if you have a will or a living trust. Even if we have a will here in California, я можу це видати. So even if you have a will, you will go through the probate process, right? If you have a living trust, you don't have that. Important to know, this is public. So if you die, you have a will, this process is actually public. So your assets are frozen. Until the probate is done, nothing can happen. So if you die, your children may need to sell the house, for instance. It's a situation that happens all too often. They may have to do something, but those are assets are frozen. And the court process is 6 months to 2 years, but 2 years. So your heirs may not have access to this stuff for 2 years. Meanwhile, you have a house, has a mortgage, somebody has to pay for the mortgage. Maybe it's not a convenient or hardship to pay the mortgage, well, you can't sell the house. So you may have to go for 2 years before that can get resolved. Also, if you have to go through this and hire lawyers, this says it's going to cost you 5 to 20% of the estate. So the estate attorney that we partner with says you could expect about 10%. It's going to cost you in fees to go through this process. So here, as far as disability planning, the court will figure out who's going to be the guardian. Here you can specify exactly everything that you want.
Можна питання вам?
Прошу.
I can say ask it in English.
Yeah.
When is minor is start being considered a minor? Is it 18 or 20?
Yeah, 18.
18. So technically, can one kid be a guardian of?
Yes, if they're 18,
If they
yes.
are 18.
If they are
They could
a
be a
major
guardian.
called age of majority, if they're 18 or older,
Mhm.
that's that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, so that's just about the trust. Now, One other thing I wanted to mention here, we talked about this last time, so we know one of the things we want to plan for is, we know there's going to be there's inflation, certain things are going to cost more. What I didn't get into too much last time is something called long-term care. So long-term care is not like when you're in a hospital, because you're in a hospital for a short amount of time. If you end up needing care, and for that, there's like called 6 activities of daily living. So if you need help to feed yourself, to get dressed, go to the bathroom, to walk around, you can't drive your car. There's also cognitive. We hear a lot of people suffer from Alzheimer's, dementia. So those are things that aren't going to go away in a few weeks or a few months. People may need to deal with this for 2 years, 5 years, maybe longer. So what we need to understand is all these different things here. If you need care at home, right? Nationally, it's $5,000 a month. In California, this is Burlingame, but this is closer to us. You can see $7,000 a month, and in 2040, it's going to be almost $12,000. Adult daycare, now even assisted living, we're still talking about $5,000–6,000 a month going to 10. Memory care, we talked about cognitive problems, right? If you have to be in a facility that helps you, it's very expensive. And worst case, if you have to be in a facility, $13,000. There's one person in East Palo Alto. He's a kind of well-known person. So he needed care, and in his case, that was costing $15,000 a month. So if somebody needs this, where's the money going to come from to pay for this?
Be nice to your children.
Well,
But they may or may not care for you.
well, that may or may not work, right? Even if your kids may want to take care of you,
They'll send you
your spouse may want, but can they? You know, are they going to be able to lift you out of bed? You know, every day, right? Are they going to be able to do all these kind of things, right?
Yeah. So maybe it's premature to ask question. I just register question.
I'm just going to remind you.
So this question kind of bothers me because as an immigrant I don't have this experience. Also my parents come with me, but they have no assets, so state paid for them something. But I do have assets in, my house, and it's in living trust. But if something happened to me, would this house be accounted that I have money, or it would not be accounted that I don't have money? That's
What do you mean?
So let's say I have house and it's in living trust. But let's say something happened to me and I need long-term care. Would state say you have money pay for yourself, or would state help?
You can name somebody in the trust that can take over.
So let me answer that question in a very basic way, but this is a involved kind of situation. So a trust basically just says what's going to happen with your assets. Now, if you are in a situation where you need this kind of care, and something in your estate may have to be liquidated to pay for this, monies may have to be spent down to do this. You mentioned about the state.
Yeah, so my question was, I only seen that state, like I mean, helped my parents when they needed,
Yeah.
would it help me or it would reject and say you pay for yourself? That I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
If you,
I just want to answer this in a
Okay.
very simple way because
Yeah, I
this is
don't
not,
want to distract you.
we could spend the
Yeah.
whole time talking about this. Let me just say, there is a safety net of sorts. The state can take care of you. However, before the state takes care of you, you basically have to be, you have to use all your resources first. Once you're down to a level of, certain level of poverty, then you can get care from the state. However, that level of care is not going to be probably what you would have chosen yourself. You have to take whatever they give you. And most likely, if we live here, but that level of care will not be available here. You're going to have to go Central California, you may have to go to another state to get that care. So it's really like if somebody hasn't planned, they have no other option, I wouldn't put any of my family into that kind of situation. But if you have nothing, then you have nothing.
Yeah, so sorry, yeah, let me just restate my question when you go to the trust. So my question is that in what case state think you used your assets, and in what case state think you did not use your assets if you put some of your assets into trust, revocable or not revocable? That's my question. When you get to it, yeah.
So I want to end it here.
I just wanted to
The,
answer this question.
Whether you have a trust or not, the state is going to see what you have. The trust doesn't hide anything. It just sets the legal transfer of your assets. So there's something called a 2-year look back. They're going to look at what your resources were like 2 years back. So you really can't hide things. So that's kind of independent. But we can explore this at another time.
Let's not distract you.
Can I say something about Saraswati? As long as you are alive, you are in control of your trust. If you are incapacitated, somewhere in your trust, your lawyer should have put in there, in the event that you are incapacitated, you're going to designate somebody to be acting on your best interest on your behalf, which means they will use whatever necessary means to give you the care that you need with the amounts. As long as you're alive, they can use your assets to help you. Now, if you pass away, that automatically goes to your beneficiaries. But up to that point, it's all your money. And you should always designate in the event, dual authority. But there's only one mistake that you should never make. Never give the power of attorney to a lawyer, because they can run away.
No, I have sufficient number of
Because they can
relatives.
run away with your money.
Yeah, I have
Make sure
sufficient
that
relatives to take care of it. Only like, let's not distract you, but only like when we get to it,
Don't
there's a
assume that your
difference
lawyer
between
has to
revocable
decide.
and irrevocable trust. This nuance. When we get to it, sorry
Yeah.
for distracting.
That's
No,
okay.
that's okay.
We can look at this at another time, because I just want to make sure that people understand, that these things do happen, whether you want it or not, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's health-wise, sometimes it can be due to an accident, right? So you never know. So going back to protection, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time, because insurance is usually not well understood, or understood of like what all the different forms and stuff of insurance there is. So at the heart of everything, there's cost of insurance. So regardless of which type, everyone uses the same statistical data saying, we know for a large population, people will live to a certain length of time, right? And so this cost of insurance is stated by everyone. So underneath everything, there's cost of insurance, and you see it goes up. Because when you're young, you're less likely to die. When you're older, you're more likely to die. So the cost is always higher. It's fundamentally, this is built into all of these. The simplest one is term insurance, which just means that you have insurance for a term. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, maybe up to 30 years. You have, that's the least expensive insurance. And it's, in a way, it's kind of like car or home insurance. If you have if nothing happens to your car, they don't give you your premium back. If nothing happens to your house, you don't get your premium back. If you didn't use the term, you didn't use it, well, you have the protection that when the term is finished, then it's done. So this is the oldest one, been around for a long time. Whole life is, so these are all permanent. This is temporary term. Everything else here is permanent. So whole life means for your whole life. This is, with this kind of insurance, you pay a fixed premium for the life of the policy. So basically, in the beginning, you're paying a lot more. That money is collected, and it earns a small amount of interest, which offsets the cost of insurance when you get higher. So later on, different forms of insurance came around. Universal life basically has flexible premium. Whole life has one premium. You have to pay it typically for your whole life. It's one premium. These allow for some flexibility, because remember, we're accumulating money with the insurance company to help pay for the cost of insurance when we get older. In here, you have some flexibility because you have some built-up cash value. You have some flexibility in your premium payments. For example, 1 month I'm a little short on money, I can pay less and then catch up. The other forms of insurance, there's the index. So let's go. Index universal life is like this one, except the difference is, what is this index? The index is a financial index, maybe the S&P 500 or some other ones. So when your money is sitting with the insurance company, they credit you for that money. It grows based on an index. So along with this, there's IRS Tax Code 7702, which allows for cash value to grow in one of these kind of policies. Another variable of this is this one, but it also has a long-term care rider, which means that insurance, if something happens to you, they will pay out. The payout can be for when a person dies. They also can be paid out if a person has a terminal illness or they have a chronic condition or a critical. You can get some of the death benefit paid out. You don't have to die. So long-term care is along those lines. If you do need long-term care and you have a policy like this, some of that death benefit can be paid to you to pay for that long-term care. The other one here, variable, is similar to all of these, but your money is in a separate account that's invested in mutual funds which you can get higher gains, but they're also, markets go up and down. So this can go up and down. There are certain things that this kind is good for. These can also have a long-term care. So here there's one way I mentioned about taking care of the long-term care. There's other things we can do with this kind of with insurance. So kind of pretty much what I said before. So you have a death benefit that goes until for your lifetime. If the death benefit is paid to your beneficiaries, and they have no tax on it. It can cover terminal illness. So if somebody something happens to them and they're going to die within 12 months, you can basically get pretty much most of the 90% or so of the death benefit to help take care of you in your last days. And then long-term care, typically 2% per month is paid out if you qualify. And there's a tax advantage that the IRS gives you. So in some ways it's similar to a Roth. So you can participate in the market growth, but this one gives you downside protection, meaning this is a floor and cap kind of strategy. So you won't never get the full upside of the market, but you never get a loss either. And this money, unlike a Roth, can be used to help pay for college, your kids' college, for your retirement savings, emergency fund. So I'll tell you, you'll see where I'm going with this. The last time we talked about in retirement, we used to have pensions and then people saved up a little bit. Now, very few people, if any, have pensions, and we need to take care of ourselves, mostly on our own. So a lot of people like to invest, and we've been told, like, you get a job, you have a 401k. Right? People want to put money into a 401k. So let's look at this. So this year, we can put as an individual, we can put $23,000 into a $23,000 into the 401k. So as far as the contributions go, I'm not sure where the other this additional contribution. This only happens in certain circumstances, but as an individual, we can put a maximum of almost $24,000. When we get older, we can put some more money into this kind of a plan. So if we think about this, 24,000, right? If this represents about 15% of your salary if you make about $150,000. So saving 10% is maybe not quite enough. Saving 20% would be better, but if we can save 15%, that's not bad. So this money, when you put that money in, you don't pay tax on it. It grows tax deferred, so it accumulates more over time. Now, we look at the other one, there's something called a Roth IRA. This one, the money goes in after you pay taxes, and you can enjoy the growth of that account without paying further tax. The challenge with Roth is the maximum we can put in is $7,000 a year, just the same as a regular traditional individual retirement account for the Roth. We can only put in 7,000, and when you get older, they give you a little bit more. And this one, it goes down, and you make more money. So as a couple, so as an individual, it's around 150,000, or as a couple, a little bit over 200,000, and you can put in less. But even here, 7,000, the other one was 23,000. It's just really hard to build up money in this kind of account because you're only allowed to put so much money into it. And it still has the 59.5 rule, which you don't want to take money out before you're 59.5. Although Roths do not have required minimum distributions. Now,
From what year it's minimum distribution again?
so
From what age, I mean?
when you put money into a deferred plan, that 401k or Roth, at some age, you're required to start
You don't
taking
know what age, no? What age?
age. So the rules have changed now. The R&D age is basically 73 to 75, depending on your age. So the younger people can get up to 75. Older folks, it used to be 70.5, it's now 73.
I could ask you a question, maybe you know the answer. Until what age you could put in IRA? Until what age you could put into IRA if you are still working? You don't know.
There's no limit.
So you could put in 75 and take in 75. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
You can. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But you're required to take, after 59.5, you're required to take a certain amount, isn't it?
No.
75.
59.5
You can
is
start taking it out.
before 59.5, if you take money out,
Penalty,
there's a 10% penalty.
right,
After 59.5, you take your money out, pay your tax.
correct.
Now, you don't have to do that until you age 73 now, where they will, there's a formula.
Require you.
Every year you
Percentage.
have to take a little bit more.
Mhm.
So the IRS allowed you to not pay taxes now on your income, but they want that tax revenue. So eventually you have to take that money out.
And if you don't, the place where you have your stocks or your IRA or whatever, they will take it out for you and
One
make
way
sure.
or another, they will take
Yeah,
it.
they will take it, and they'll send you a 1099 form
Okay.
and tell you exactly.
So we talked about 401ks or IRAs. The reason, so now I'm going to show you, this is from the last time, there's another one, a more recent one. So when we look at all these different classes, well, this is all, inflation's been higher than 2. But one thing to note is the average investor, they don't make a lot of money. We'll go into why that is when you look at homes and stuff. So here, if we look at 20 years, 1997, 2016, stocks over that time averaged 7.68% growth. A more recent one, we've seen gold spike up, but over from 2001 to 2020, the average investor is a little bit better, but still very low. So the reason I'm talking about this is when we know about stocks and we want to invest, why is this number so low? So we can find on sources like this the behavior patterns. So this is investor.gov from the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Why is it that individual investors have, statistically, as a group, have low returns? So when you're, basically this says it's kind of hard to beat the averages or the indices. So beating the S&P 500 or beating some of the other indices is not easy to do. So this company called disposition effect. So holding on too long or selling too soon. All of these are emotional kind of driven things versus data. So
Isn't
it's-
the rate of return dependent on which companies you invest in? I mean, 2% is kind of low, but if your portfolio is in a good, if you choose the right kind of portfolio, you can go as far as 10% rate
Well,
of return.
statistically, when you look at all individual investors, that's the number. Right? So focusing on past performance, ignoring fees, familiarity, bias means if I stick with what I know, I'm not so sure about things I don't know about. And then, of course, panicking when you see something in the news. Momentum, something's going up, fear of missing out, right? The stock is going really high, I want to get in on it, but that's not necessarily the best thing. Naive diversification, I'm not really sure how to implement, a real diversification, trading noise. So when you react too much to news in the market, all of these things are why that average is so low. So now, I ran a little analysis. So remember we said the maximum you can put in your 401k is $23,500 in a year. So I'm going to show two different things, split, half and half. So basically, if it's around $24,000 a year, it's like $2,000 a month. So let's take half of it, and we put this in. We're just investing, and let's assume that we're getting 8% return consistently across 30 years. So then it compounds. So every month you put in $1,000, and that combination, all of that gets earns 8% over time. So 30 years later, starting with nothing, just $1,000 a month, you reach $1.5 million. Now, this one assumes marginal tax rate 28.56. So after tax, this would be a little bit less than $1 million. Okay, so 30 years of putting in $1,000 a month, you have $1.5 million. Sounds good, right?
Because you have an extra $1,000 right?
Well, we can scale, if you have half of that, then basically
Go ahead.
it'll scale. I just wanna say, take an example, right? People get advice, max out your 401k. So let's look into that a little bit more. So it's the same thing, 30 years, $1,000 a month. It's compounded monthly, your tax rates. So this is what would happen. So this is also assumes this is in a deferred account where you're not paying tax every year. Okay, so now we're back to this one because what happens if you put your money in a plan like this? Either you have a variable or you have an index, and your money is credited. What happens? Okay, so here's one as an IRA alternative. Remember that the most you can put into a Roth account is $7,000 a year. So we don't have that limitation when you use IRS 7702. If you look here, the comparison. So tax-free accumulation is the same. Tax-free distributions are the same. If you follow the rules. That benefit, there's no death benefit here, but you do have one with your life insurance. So when you start building your account value, it's very low. So if something happens, you just have the account value, but if you have life insurance, you're going to get, beneficiary is going to get the full amount. So required minimum distributions, they don't have that. Contributions, restrictions based on gross income. Well, this one, yes, this one doesn't have that limit. So earnings limit to participate is basically the same thing here. You don't really have that. Tax penalty on early distributions, 59.5, there's none here. So here you have investment fees, and here life insurance policy charges.
Is life insurance have early distribution? I didn't see it there.
What does that mean?
I mean, like insurance have cash value, but I only see the option to borrow against it, but
Yes,
not to
of course.
distribute it.
Yes. Yeah, of course, yeah, you can borrow against the cash value.
But you couldn't distribute it as far as I see now.
So, yeah, we can pause here for a little bit. So when your cash value in this policy accumulates, you can loan money out, or you can take money out. Now, when you take money out, you have to make sure you continue to pay the premiums, because you don't want the policy to lapse. Because if the life insurance policy goes away, your tax benefit goes away, now you owe tax on all the gains. Right, so it can be withdrawn, it can be loaned. We'll get to a real example of that in a moment. So now, let's say we put $1,000 into policy like this. Now, when you invest in a 401k, they don't care your age, they don't care your health. This one, it doesn't matter. So this is not free in that sense. We want to start earlier. So here's an example of somebody that started at age 35, good health, same money, $12,000 annual premium for 30 years. So there's a $500,000 base amount, and now we want to look at, we put all this money in for 30 years. Now, between 66 and 90, how much money can we get from here and still keep the policy? Now, there are some guidelines set by the regulators in terms of what rate we can use. So the maximum rate we can use is 7.25%. Historically, this number is higher, but we are limited to using this number. So if you look at it, the money you put in, $360,000, $12,000 a year for 30 years, it's the same as the other investment. This one has a cash value of $860,000. However, you can loan out and take out total $1.6 million from this account, tax-free. So again, that's a summary. Everything here is in a global account, which means U.S. and other countries. We have a long-term care rider here. The other reason I put this out here is you can see here is the called the minimum no lapse premium. This is what, just to maintain it for insurance purposes, $220. The rest of the money goes to cash value. So we're taking advantage of the IRS tax rule to grow our money in this account. Now, remember, this one was 7.25%. The other account I ran at 8%. So we go back and we look at the return on the S&P, the stock market, it was a little over 7%. Here, if you remember a few slides ago. So 7.6%, 7.5%. Long term, that's what you get from S&P 500.
So what is it better to just take that $1,000 and invest it in stocks than to buy an insurance policy?
Well, I just showed you.
On your own, and then use that money for your,
So now, I just put together a table that compares. So whether this is in a 401k, I put it in the 401k because you're not paying tax every year. If this was in a regular brokerage account, every year you make money, you pay tax. And that's going to substantially decrease your accumulated amount because you're taking government's taking some of that away from you every year. So this can grow. So at 65, so.
but that's assuming you're selling the stock, right?
Well,
It's not
yeah. Anyway, we're assuming that you got 8% compounded every year. However, whether you sold it or you did sell it, otherwise it gets too complicated to try to show something. But getting an 8% return on investment is not bad. It's high. It's aligned with what stock markets have averaged over a long period of time. So here we put this money in 360, same amount. Here we've got $1.5 million, but we haven't paid tax on it yet. So later on we can look at what's sometimes debated, but how much when we have money in a market account, how much can we take out and still keep the account, not spend it down, not lose it due to market risk. Remember, we're looking at from age 66 to 90, how much money we're going to be able to get. So I just use 4%. We can debate on what that number is, but just draw a line in so we try to compare this. Right, so we have 1.5 million that we can draw income out of, but then we're paying tax on this. Here, because we already paid the tax, assuming everything. Now, what this counts on is that the markets have gone up on the average of 7 to 8% over time. The same in both cases, because you're getting credited here basically on the same kind of index. So here, we're able to get 65,000 tax-free. Here, you take 4% of 1.5 million, 60,000. Now, if you only pay 25% tax, that knocks that down quite a bit. So if you look at, we've accumulated 1.5 million. So basically, we have 1.5 million that we need for us to last through these years. Here, you're going to be able to pull out 1.6 tax-free. This one gives you the long-term care benefit. And then as far as the death benefit goes, whatever your account value is. So if you're 20 years into this, whatever this has grown to, that's what you get. Here, this is started out at 500. As the cash value grows, this death benefit goes all the way up to $1 million. So what I'm trying to tell you is these two are kind of similar in a lot of ways, right? You put the same money in, now we can get a better income tax-free here than this one. So why not maybe diversify? You can put some of your money into a market, put some of your money into a plan that gives you a little more safety and some tax advantages.
I just have a question. So let's say you get into a long-term situation where you need the care, and you don't use up all your cash value of your of your insurance. Who, doesn't matter how it's structured, who gets the remaining balances not used for your care?
You name a beneficiary.
So you have an option on all of those, or do they get to keep or does the insurance company get to keep the remaining balance that's not used?
Whatever is remaining goes to your beneficiary.
Okay.
So it's not a bad deal.
So I didn't catch it. So this $200-something which goes to cost of insurance, it covers long-term care too?
Yes.
It's every month.
Yeah.
Every month that you have to pay $200.
Yeah. This is.
So if you give 1,000, you technically you're only putting in 800, more or less, right?
So yeah, out of the $1,000, 220 goes to pay the insurance costs. The rest, is a little bit less than 800, is what's accumulating. So this is just one simple example. Now, if we really wanted to dive into this, it would take a long time. I just wanted to show that we have some options. I'm not trying to say that one is better than the other one, but if you put the two together,
But that assumes that the tax bracket will stay the same, because sometimes at the end of when you reach your retirement age or sick age, so to speak, your tax bracket may be lower or higher depending on what Congress does, which
true.
means
yeah. So
you're deferring with assumption
So
that
this
perhaps,
is subject to tax, which,
correct,
tell me what the tax rates are 30 years from now.
well, you don't know,
Right,
that's
so
what
you
I'm
don't-
saying.
So you don't know, right? So this is one way of, you can pay your tax at a known rate now, and never worry about it later. Right, so. The important thing when we structure a policy like this, we're not maximizing because one way to do it is you maximize the amount of death benefit, the amount of coverage that you can get. So in other words, if we were doing that path, we would only be paying 200 something, because we're only paying for the life insurance. We're not putting extra money into it. This is a way that you can use this tax advantage that the IRS gives you to have two buckets now. You build money up here and you build money up here. And you don't have to take this money out, but you could. So now you have a flexibility. 1 year, the market's up, you've made a lot of money, you can take some money out of there, leave it here. Another year, markets are down. You need to wait for the market to come back up, take the money out here instead. So instead of having everything in one bucket, so we talked about diversification. Instead of having everything in one basket, why not put it into more? So that's what I wanted to say.
But probably it's not for people of my age, as I'm already 64.
Yeah. So, like anything, this grew from 360, 1.5 over 30 years. Yeah, at age 65, we don't have 30 years, right?
No, I mean the insurance that you describing at age of 65 would be more expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, so it won't work for various reasons. So if you have somebody that's 65 and you're trying to accumulate money, well, you don't have time.
No, but I mean at least to have
So that's why I mentioned earlier, this is really targeting this at more at the younger people. Now, we can look at options for how this would work with somebody that's older. This is just, one example. Basically, same amount of time, same amount of money, and where do you end up later? So,
One lesson, as soon as the kid is born, already worry about retirement, so, it's,
Well-
you were born and you have to put
yeah, so, yes, you can, if you start with a child, the cost of their insurance is very little, right? So you can start putting money into a plan, and you can start with much less, because you have. It really depends, right? If you have little ones, and maybe you only have 25 years, but if you built up something for them, when they're in their 20s, they have something that they can continue to build, right? So that's part of it is, when we start earlier, we can use less. Over time, you can do more.
Yeah, but I had insurance started when I 30, but only 100,000, so it is accumulated something, but maybe I should at that time put more.
Yeah.
But it's only $66 a month.
For what, for
Yeah.
IRA or?
No. So, yeah, unfortunately, that happens to too many people. Too many people, are sold like $100,000 policies, but we know time value of money, right? 20 years later, that money is going to be worth like half.
It's just enough to bury.
Well, yeah, so in a way, it's almost like a disservice, right? Because you sold somebody something, and when they actually need it, it's gonna be worth a lot less, right? But
Because I'm a
people are not enough people understand like how you can really use these vehicles to your, to your advantage. So that's all for today.
Thank you.
What do you want?
Sure.
Sapphires are good.
Щиро дякую. Завтра служба 10 годині.
Треба встати.
Я вже тут залечу, де тривати.
Після теперішнього часу,
Це вже буде так, годину переводимо назад.
Callback. Та так буде
Spring
overnight.
forward, fall back.
Back,
Yeah.
back.
That's how it goes, spring forward,
А,
fall back.
я не знаю.
Так, добре, я виключаю камеру.
Yeah, but what I say, for me at my age, most interesting would be, of course, the long-term care part. So kind of would feel more secure for
Medicare?
my assets, yeah, if it would be
Боже, я
covered by